Hi, this is John Kapelos. You're listening to Noel Fogelman, and he's reliving his youth in his great podcast, and I happen to be his guest. I hope you enjoy.
And welcome to Reliving My Youth, the show where we look back at pop culture from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. My name is Noel Fogelman, and I had a chance to speak with John Kapelos. John's probably best known as Carl the Janitor from The Breakfast Club. We get into that movie, obviously, and how he wasn't the first choice to play Carl. He also was in a couple of other John Hughes movies, Weird Science, 16 Candles. We get into his relationship with John Hughes a little bit. He also starred in one of my all-time favorite shows, Forever Knight, playing Detective Skanky. We talk about why he wasn't in the final season. If you turn on the TV right now, you can probably see him in so many TV shows. He guest starred in pretty much every TV show known to man. He had a memorable run on Justified. He was on Psych. He was on Chuck. Played Barry, the sniffing accountant on Seinfeld, X-Files. You name it, he was on it. We get into his career, what he's doing now, and a little bit about his music. He's a musician as well, and he's set to release hopefully some CD album sometime in the near future. Here's my conversation with John. And helping me relive my youth today is John Kapelos. John, how are you today?
I am excellent.
I really
Pleasure
appreciate.
to be speaking with you.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate this. So, how did you become an actor?
Well, I was in high school. I was in ninth grade, going into 10th grade, and I auditioned for the school play, and I got a part in Guys and Dolls. Not just a part, the lead of Nathan Detroit. So I got to do that. And all of a sudden I thought, wow, this is fun. I got to get out of class. I got to be in the school play, the focus of attention, and I could also do it. So I started taking acting classes next year in drama class, and it sort of went from there. I went to university, and my third year of university, I decided I wanted to give professional acting a chance. So that's when I told my parents, and it entered another realm after that.
Were your parents receptive to that?
My dad was actually, my mother was less receptive, a little bit more in shock. My father said, once the dust settled and he realized I really wanted to do it, he said, why don't you do it for the next year? And if you don't get a job, then you're going back to school. And that was our bargain. So within 6 months, I got a job at Second City. So it's pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's not bad. Is that when you worked with John Candy?
Yeah, well, actually, I was taking workshops in Toronto at Second City, and I met John Candy, and he and I became friends. I wouldn't say, I was more enamored of him because he was John Candy, and he was really, really nice to me as a workshop guy. And a few of us in the workshops got a little cheeky and asked, did a little money. We collected some money and asked John to do some extra workshops with us, and we'd pay him. And he said, sure. So we found this space, and he did some comedy workshops with us outside of Second City. And lo and behold, he wouldn't take our money.
That's good. Now, did you find yourself more of, back then, a dramatic actor or more comedic?
I think that, initially I thought of myself as a dramatic actor, but then but what did I know? I had done school plays and university plays and had done one or two plays in sort of community theater, which is not really professional, but gives you a taste of professional theater in a way. So I thought I fancied myself a bit of a dramatic actor. I never really didn't know what Second City was. And it played to one of my strengths, which was I was sort of funny and had the ability to make funny, to be funny. So that was a big part of my my sort of education. So yeah, not everybody could do Second City, but I found that I could, and it was one of these things also because my dad had sort of put so much pressure on my getting a job it was one of the few theaters that I knew that was actually hiring actors and paying them. You know?
Yeah, and that kept you out of university then, I guess, right?
That's right. Kept me back from going to college, university, whatever, and saved my tuchus.
Yeah, no doubt. So then, how did you get involved with John Hughes?
Well, I was in Chicago. I was in the touring company, and I started. I got an agent who represented me in Chicago, and it was at that point that I had the opportunity to audition for some movies. And one of the first films I got to audition for was 16 Candles. It was being shot in Chicago. And that's where I met John Hughes, and that sort of changed the trajectory of my career in a certain way.
Now, with the Breakfast Club, I believe Rick Moranis almost played the janitor, correct?
Right. What happened was that I did 16 Candles, and then John said, I'm doing this other film called The Breakfast Club, and usually you'd be perfect for the role of the janitor. So flash ahead maybe a year after doing 16 Candles, I was on the road. Actually, I was in New York performing at the Village Gate with Second City. We were doing a show there for about 5 months, which is Village Gate was a really cool club in the village that mostly a music venue, but we were at Second City where we had a show going there, and it was doing very, very well. This is 1984, and the name of the show is Orwell That Ends Well. And I'm doing the show there, and I read the trade papers in New York, the old Variety magazine, saying that they're shooting The Breakfast Club in Chicago, and Rick Moranis has got the part of the janitor, and I closed the trade papers. I said, well, so it goes. So much for my getting the part and having a great part in The Breakfast Club. And literally the next day I got a phone call saying that Rick Moranis and John had a parting of the ways, and would I come to Chicago? So I said, yeah. So they flew me back to Chicago, and where I still had an apartment, and I worked on The Breakfast Club, which was a game changer for me.
Yeah, no doubt. I was telling my wife that I was going to be speaking to you this morning, and as soon as I finished that, she immediately started quoting Carl. Now, what makes this movie such a timeless classic?
Well, I think in part, and this is what I've said before, and I'll say it again, and I really do believe it because it just is that John captured the zeitgeist of the teen at that time. He was a unique writer in that he sort of spoke from a teen's perspective. He had it so emblazoned in his recent memory, being in his, not being much older than teen himself in his 20s and early 30s. But he also, he didn't talk down to teenagers. He wrote really from their point of view, and it was meant for them. It wasn't meant for adults. So that's why you get this sort of strange, vocabulary that arose, and the fact that he sort of created, dweeb and all these sort of code of teenage code at the time. He was a very, very, he really understood teenage behavior, and there was kind of a behavior that he tapped into that really hadn't been hitherto really explored in the films. I think the only really big teenage movie that before Breakfast Club, and there were a lot of good films that were aimed at teenagers, but really the first teenage movie that spoke with the voice of teenagers was maybe, let's say, something like The Breakfast Club. And before that, it was kind of Rebel Without a Cause, which was in the 50s.
Yeah, and there really hasn't been one since, that really has spoken to a teenager. Now, you had a pretty big monologue that was cut out that was kind of supposed to predict the future of all the characters. Do you remember it?
No, yeah, I do. We shot all this stuff where I told them where they're going to be basically today, in their 40s and 50s, and it was meant to be funny but also truthful. So Molly was going to be a mom, she was going to be a soccer mom, and Anthony Michael was going to be a lawyer, and Big Jagoff, I said big heart attack, and Judd Nelson, I had him pegged to be in and out of jail, and Ali Sheedy, she was going to be sort of a, kind of a art festival artist, not really having made it, but sort of doing these cheesy art festivals. And Emilio Estevez, I forget exactly his character, but it's something like, you're going to be a failed gym teacher or something, an athlete that never made it. So it was all about, crushing their dreams and giving them a more realistic perspective on really what it is you're going to be. Right now you have dreams. It was a bit of a dream-crushing reality moment. And ultimately, the monologues became more about Carl and less about the film. So ultimately, they didn't really fit into the rhythm of the movie. And the movie, as we see it now, sort of evolved from all the shooting that John did. I mean, John shot scads of stuff that didn't make it in the film, or that he experimented with that maybe was going to make it. And then there was a lot of stuff that he shot that was experimental and improvisational that did make it in the movie.
No, he was known for that throughout his movies, correct?
Yeah, he would shoot, let's say, 7, 8, 9 takes of the way it was written, and then shoot maybe as many improvisationally if he trusted the actor. So he had a shooting ratio, which was pretty high, and a shooting ratio, especially in the days when you're shooting film, let's say 18, if you shot 18 takes and used one, the shooting ratio would be, let's say, 18 to 1, which is pretty high. So he burned a lot of film. But he also worked on the principle that when you're set up and they're shooting, that the cheapest thing you've got at that moment is film. So John, trusted actors that could improvise, and therefore those are the people that he would let sort of run free like that. So lines like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be John Lennon, or a lot of the stuff with Vern in the basement in the Breakfast Club, a lot of that was improvised, at least from my end.
Right, and Vern, that role, I mean, he nailed that role. Absolutely. And now it's funny, as an adult now, you kind of relate to Richard a little bit more than the teens.
Well, there's kind of a sloppy reality to the guy. I mean, he's kind of, he's a strange. He's a bit of a villain when you see the film as a teenager. He becomes more of a hapless adult when you become an adult, and you relate to it in a different way. But still, he's a bit of a jerk.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he took that to Die Hard as well. He had a memorable role in that as well.
I mean, he was a wonderful actor, and he died too soon, died too young.
Yeah, totally. Same as John Hughes as well.
Oh God, yeah, that was a sad tragedy.
Yeah. Are you surprised, or more relieved that they haven't remade any of his movies?
It's a good question. I mean, a couple of years ago they did a reading of The Breakfast Club where, Patton Oswalt and all these actors read, I think Patton Oswalt read the janitor part.
Right.
I honestly think that, I don't know whether I'm relieved. I mean, that's a good question. I think in a lot of ways I'm just pleased that the films are of such a caliber that to remake them would beg the question, why? And what are you trying to do? Oftentimes remakes are of films that are maybe missed the mark at the beginning. This isn't necessarily true all the time, but successful remakes, I would think, were films that were made from something that was maybe not as good the first time around. I think it's much, much tougher to remake films that were so good, and the reason for doing them is probably more vanity than anything else, and also Hollywood's ability to sort of, eat its young.
Right. Because I recently spoke with Dwight Schultz, who was in the A-Team, and he had less than positive thing to say about the reboot of the movie, where he basically said that Bradley Cooper's character, Face, did everything that the 4 characters in the TV show did, so why make a movie?
Well, I also think that there's a kitschiness quality to the A-Team, and films like that and Man from U.N.C.L.E. or whatever are sort of doing a tongue-in-cheek take on it. What was the other one? That's Starsky and Hutch,
Right, and then recently Baywatch and Chips. Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I think ironically, I mean, the people that are in those shows at the beginning do not see the irony of what they've become to another generation.
Right.
And to me, that's emblematic of the fact that he just doesn't get it.
Yeah, good point. Now, like, I probably think the Fugitive movie was probably one of the ones that actually, succeeded over the TV show.
Well, the Fugitive, as I like to call it, it was a good movie, and I also think that it transcended the show because, in a way, it took the premise and expanded on it. I mean, let's face it, a lot of these TV shows were thin to begin with. And, we're also remixed. I mean, if you want to go to a TV show like The Saint, which Roger Moore was in, it was remade as a movie, right?
Right, I think with Val Kilmer.
Yeah, but it was Val Kilmer. But, I mean, it was George Saunders in the 1940s. I mean, The Saint is a franchise that's been around again and again. So Hollywood is, redoes
everything.
Can you do Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah, true.
Another one. Franchises, to me it's also, I'm pretty hard on my generation, but to me it's a reflection of how the baby boom is bereft of any new ideas. When I started remaking things like Dragnet and all that stuff, frankly, I just thought it was appalling. I still do.
Yeah, nah, I know. How many times can you see, the origin story of Spider-Man or Batman?
To me, I mean, the comic book thing is a huge head scratch, but it's about money.
Yeah, always.
And lots of it.
Yeah. Now, one of my favorite roles of yours was in Forever Night. I absolutely love that show. I think it's, a cult classic. Were you actually surprised that you were able to, like, be in that show after, like, the Nick Knight TV movie?
Well, I mean, it was a compliment in a way to me that they wanted to keep me and move on with it. I sort of created Skanky in a way, and they let me take them to the next level. It was a bit like, repeating a year of high school because I reshot the same pilot. The one I did with Rick Springfield, and I did it with Geraint Wynne Davies and a whole different group of people up in Canada. Again, there's a show that sort of foresaw a lot of other shows like Buffy and True Blood and all that stuff. But, again, the vampire franchise is as old as vampire.
Right.
So I can't say that, oh, God, we had an original thing that was taken. We had a twist on it, which I thought was interesting. It was a fun show to work on. I got to do a lot of improvisation, and I also got to create my character. And at the same time, piss off a lot of people at CBS.
Right. Now, you wrote and directed in that show as well, correct?
Yeah, I wrote an episode called The Code, and I directed an episode called More Permanent Hell. So that was a good opportunity for me.
Yeah. So how did you find out that they were going to kill off your character?
I beg your pardon?
How did you find out that they were going to kill your character?
James Perriott basically took me to lunch. The show was moving to A&E from CBS. And the mandate was that they bring in a new partner for Nick, a younger woman that he could possibly have a love interest with. And the idea was that they were going to put me in the captain's chair, and where I would both go, Cagney, Lacey, get in here,
Right.
and get paid less, and get less billing, and work less. And James made that pitch to me, and I said, well, basically you're asking me to leave the show. He said, well, not really. I mean, but, it's a reduced position. I said, well, thanks, but I think I'm going to pass on that. And that's when they decided to obliterate my character in a plane crash, so I could never have a chance of coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
I also told him very calmly and very, I said, I think the show's going to suffer. I think you're making a mistake. And I don't think that the fans, despite the fact that fans have no pull or sway to any TV show in history,
Right.
And people never make any decisions according to the fans, which I think in some ways is a little bit of a disservice to them, but that's another story. But I said I don't think the fans are going to like it, and I was right.
Yeah, you definitely were. The first two seasons of that show were far superior than the last, but, what do fans know, correct?
The woman that they got to play Nick's partner was particularly, agile insofar as doing the things that they needed to do, and all that sort of stuff. But, it's old history.
Yeah. Now you've guest starred in a ton of TV shows. You can probably play 6 Degrees of John Kapelos. Do you enjoy guest starring and playing different roles from week to week or from show to show?
Well, part of the job as a journeyman actor is doing that. I didn't really get any action on any other shows in terms of being a regular, so it sort of evolved into the fact that our TV mostly was a place for me to make a living. So whether it was Murder, She Wrote or Matlock or Criminal Minds or whatever the hell, you just go from show to show doing this. And if that's the way it's going to be, the movie business changed and evolved. When I started doing movies in the 70s, in the 80s, around 1982, 83, 84, the movie budgets were like 10, 15 million, $20 million, 5, 10, 15, 20, and those were big budget movies. And then there'd be, 7 or 8 parts in it that were really good, from 1 to 7 in the cast list. And then they start doing 150, 200, $250 million movies. Well, basically, they're just writing around 2 or 3 leads, and everybody else, is got smaller sort of parts that sort of are like, if you're a bad guy, you're indicative of your character is just, sort of one-note bad guy. If you come in with a piece of information, you're a one-note piece of information person. So the movies did not offer as much of a range of roles, so you take what's out there. And, so I ended up becoming the king of the hour TV thing.
Right, yeah. So every time I watched the show and I saw your name in the guest starring credits, I knew it was going to be a memorable role. The one in Justified was great. That was also good. Even a show like Psych. So you could definitely, expand your, acting range from more of a comedic show to a more dramatic show.
Yeah, and the fact is that, I can do drama. So a lot of actors who do comedy sometimes can't do drama and vice versa. A lot of actors who do drama, comedy cannot do drama. There are, of course, many exceptions. But I can also play blue collar and white collar, which is another way of going. So that gave me a bit of room to move as an actor. And also I sort of did not want to be typed. So, but ultimately there is a type. The character I play can be named sleazy or marginal. I fucking hate that description, but it always seems to be, people lump.
Right. The old character actor, right?
Yeah, and it's a little bit facile, but,
Yeah. Now moving on, when did you get involved in music?
Well, honestly, since I was a kid, I've been playing music. Was playing music before I became an actor. And when I was a teenager, I seriously thought of becoming a professional musician. But acting sort of became a better shot for me, and also something that I wanted to do more. I did music at Second City, I did music. But when I sort of got a bit older, I thought, shit, I want to get around to do this. So I recorded an album in the 90s called Sid the Karaoke Kid. And then I did an album all in GarageBand called May. And I've got a new album called Too Hip for the Room, which I've been delaying releasing for the last year and a half because I'm a one-man record company and I'm trying to figure out the best way to, release it and do some performing. So that's been my focus on that. And I love writing music and playing music, sort of an adjunct creative aspect to my life.
Yeah. Is any of your music available now to buy?
Actually, I've taken it all down off of iTunes, and I'm going to be re-releasing everything later this year. So at the moment, no.
Okay.
But I've got my albums I'm going to be re-releasing, and I'm figuring out different streaming platforms and things like that. I had it out there, and then I pulled it off because of sort of the whole, iTunes model, and everything got a bit bewildering. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where I wanted to have it and where I want to have it. And so it'll be available come September.
Oh, great! Look forward to hearing that. Now, what's some of the next couple roles that you're working on?
I just finished a film with Robert Schwartzman, who is Jonathan Schwartzman's brother, and it's called The Unicorn, and I play a parent with Beverly D'Angelo plays my wife, and our kids are, one of our daughters is married and about to have a child, and the other daughter, who's the focus of the movie, is breaking up with her boyfriend, and we thought they were getting together, and it's basically about relationships and how people sort of spice up their relationships by bringing a third person into them. It's a very funny comedy. Did another film called oh God, John, come on, what's the name of it now? 22 Chaser, that's coming out I think this fall, where I play it's a film we shot up in Toronto with one of the guys from what's the name of the movie, the TV show that just got canceled on Netflix? Something 8.
Sense8.
Sense8, right? One of the actors from Sense8, and it's about a guy who works in the tow truck towing business, and I'm the guy that runs the towing business. It's a really good movie, 22 Chaser. And then I did a small part in a Guillermo del Toro movie called The Shape of Water, which is coming out, I think, this summer with Sally Hawkins and Michael Shannon. And I did a small part, but that was working with the master. And Guillermo del Toro is just an incredible director.
How was
Dave Fellini, or just a real auteur, film director.
Right? How was working with Michael Shannon? He always, like, every role he is in, he always seems so serious.
He is very serious, and I didn't really do much with him. My part was with Sally, but he's intense and serious, and boy, is he well thought of. He pops off the screen. He's a good actor.
Yeah, he really is. John, thanks for a few minutes today. I really appreciate it. I look forward to your music coming out and your movies, and I'll watch forever pretty much.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
A special thanks to John for joining me today. Go on Twitter right now. Go follow John at John Kapelos. While you're there, you can also follow me at the first Noel19. Close Twitter. Go on Facebook. You can like the page Reliving My Youth. Go see John Kapelos in The Shape of Water when it comes out in the fall. I saw the trailer. It looks fantastic. Be on the lookout for 22 Chaser when that comes out as well. Go turn on your TV right now, because I'm sure you'll find him in some role, and I'm sure he's being great in it. And thanks again for helping me relive my youth.